Hello, welcome back to Game-Rave TV and the library. Let's get into it. The PlayStation is home to many games, but none may have a stranger history than that of D. From the creative mind of the now late Kenji Eno, D places gamers in control of Laura Harris, the daughter of a famous doctor named Richter who's gone off the deep end by killing visitors and taking hostages at his hospital. Laura races to the scene from her college hours away, and as she enters the hospital, so begins the story of D. As Laura enters the hospital, a weird vertical water blob whisks her away to a dimly lit, cold castle-like environment. With the front door locked behind her, our hero's only choice is to wander the building trying to find her father and the way home. Players will start in a dining room with a staircase to the far left, but something more ominous is in play. D must be finished in 2 hours or you lose, and there's no pausing allowed. You're essentially twice trapped, once within Laura's life and second within the real-world time limit. This is actually tracked in menu via Laura's pocket watch. The story starts at 3 p.m. and you have till 5 p.m. to find your father. The clock moves in real time as you watch it, which is pretty cool. Besides the timepiece, Laura also has her compact, which acts as a tip provider. If used, she'll open it up and the mirror will reveal where you should head to next. The catch is that the mirror will crack after each hint, and there are only 3 cracks allowed. There's 2 hours to kill and all we need to do is find Pops? Cool, let's just run. Or not. For horror and survival games to click, they need to have something stripped from them, in this case, a proper control scheme. Like Resident Evil's tank controls, D is played entirely from film clips. If Laura is to walk forward, players see pre-rendered first-person footage of her walking forward. Once she's able to interact with something or get called on by her father, the camera shifts to a third-person view of her trials. This cost of movement plays directly into the timed adventure. Every move you make requires a set amount of time, which forces the player to think about the next step. Thankfully, Warp spares gamers the threat of an early death. The only way Laura can die is by running out of time. Even then, she doesn't really die. She's just trapped in Castle Land. The bigger issue comes literally into play with the footage. Because players are trapped by the moving clips, Warp had to make some fairly mind-breaking decisions on how to lay the tracks on for which the user moves. For example, in the first room, you can move to the left or right of the table as you would in real life. In a later room, there's a diagonal path that connects parts of the room, and trying to find which track on that diagonal is confusing and will delay you. A much darker design choice lay in wait near the end of the game. Once players arrive at the third disc, there's a rotating room whose only purpose is to slow them down. Here's how it works. The puzzles here are connected to each room in sequential order. You take item A from room A, use it in room B to get item B, and so on. Except Warp added extra fake choices to the spinner. Instead of having to work about 5 tracks, you're now working 11, and if someone loses count and overshoots their destination choice, they have to circle back that many more turns. It's not a deal breaker, but it really does destroy the flow of the game. With full-motion video games, the footage provided needs to be top of the line to keep the audience interested. Despite looking dated by today's standards, D was gorgeous for its time frame. Laura's bizarre hair modeling aside, the castle's creepiness factor is illustrated perfectly. Stone hallways turn into spike-filled walls, furniture is vintage, clearly abandoned for years. Little touches with early jump scares and disturbing revelations help sell the hopelessness, but we'll get back to that in a second. Surprisingly, D's finest angle is when it's at its most subtle, specifically in the music department. Moments of interest have triumphant musical cues, and item acquirement has a comforting little melody, but it's when the user is simply exploring the castle that the audio shines. It's not really music, it's more moody white noise. Slow, simple droning audio clips loop until you find something of interest. If you've never played D before, use headphones and play in the dark. It really does help pull the player in. Before closing out this review, there are 2 interesting details to the game. First, in order to get the true 100% ending, the player must successfully find 4 scarab beetles hidden throughout the game. There are 2 possible beetles per disc, with the 4th and final beetle hidden in the final passageway. These beetles present the first of creator Kenji Eno's 2 devious actions. According to several guides across all 3 platforms, their appearances are 100% random. They may appear, they may not appear at all. Sometimes the way the castle is searched may trigger them. This randomness means completionists like myself may not get the 100% run on our first run, or second run, and so on. Secondly, and most importantly, is how far Kenji Eno was willing to go to see his game released. In an interview, the developer revealed he pulled a bait and switch with the game's most violent content. Afraid that Sony would censor or block the release of the game, Eno found and exploited a loophole in Sony's submission requirements. If a publisher submitted their masters too late, they would pay a fine and then need to hand deliver the masters to the factory in person. Knowing this, Eno submitted quote-unquote clean masters of the game late, and then later while on the plane to deliver the approved masters, swapped the clean discs with the real version of the game. This assured that all disturbing images, including an act of murder and cannibalism, would make it into the consumer's consoles. In a modern world, this would have probably ended his career, but with the game selling over 1 million copies in Japan alone, any retaliation was probably quietly wiped under the rug. More than 2 decades after its release, D finds itself in a unique position for historians and librarians like me. It's still well worth a once through, and even speedrunners can challenge themselves against the randomness of the Beetle appearances. Having played through this at least 6 or more times in the last 10 years, there's still that charm of spookiness that can't be shaken. On Game-Rave's review scale, it's a solid 7 out of 10. And there you have it, guys. So, D is weird because if I were reviewing it 20 years ago, it probably would have gotten like an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. But aside from that godforsaken spinning room on the third disc, in playing it all these years later and technically on more modern hardware, if you will, you begin to see like all the magician's tricks, especially with like delay tactics and extended viewing moments as you're trying to fight the 2-hour time limit. But it really is worth at least a once playthrough. Of all the long box games that I played in the original time frame, D has always just stuck with me. Like, I love the whole angle of Laura herself being a quote-unquote virtual actress, as she was reused as different characters in D2 and Enemy Zero on the Saturn. But yeah, it's a really cool game. You should check it out at least once. To give you an idea of how straight, quote-unquote, the game is as far as time frames go, your first time through, if you're not using any cheats, it'll probably take you about an hour and a half, maybe almost to 2 hours tops if you're not figuring out the spin room. Because all the FMV clips are the same, you don't have to do the hint travels. So you can literally skip almost a third of the game. I've seen some people finish the game in like half an hour instead of the 2. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, it's a really cool game. You should check it out. Unfortunately, I was trying to get this video out before Halloween, but, life got in the way. Any questions, comments? If you've played the game before, let me know how you love it down below. I'll see you next episode. Take care, you guys. Have a good one.